Hi, I'm Olivia Janna Genereaux. Welcome to my studio. I work in Norwich, Vermont. I live in Hanover, New Hampshire, and I'm having a show at the AVA Gallery. Welcome. So painting for me is about process. I believe that it's about experimentation, not having a certain outcome, and being able to take risks. Meaning, even when you think you've got something, being able to push beyond your limits and perhaps wrecking it, starting again. But it's not really wrecking it, it's just building a toolbox of knowledge. I've been painting since I was 8. The first thing I painted that I really understood what it meant to have an idea painted was my dog, and I painted it in art class in 3rd grade. We were just about to clean up, and I thought, I want to paint my dog, and I whipped it out, and it's just this beautiful little painting with tempera paint of my dog. My mother framed it, and we looked at it every day when we sat in the kitchen after lunch. Having an idea, making it happen, was this magical moment for me, and I've been doing that ever since. We can take a look at this palettes. I use oil paints when I'm in this studio, and I use vegetable oil to clean them up. I don't work with turfs because it's really smelly. Working on abstraction, and it's been really hard for me to let go of the narrative. I am most afraid of my work meeting abstraction. And the reason that's so terrifying is because if you put in a pair of socks, or you draw a house, or you have a handbag, there's something identifiable that people can hold on to. So you've got a hook. And when you're doing an abstract painting, there is no hook, but you still are dealing with the same formal issues: color, form, composition. Color is light, form and composition, perspective and scale, texture and mark making, and then of course your internal monologue or your concept and intent. And I've been doing that by building boxes and breaking out of them. And the boxes represent interiority of somebody, your insides, what you're thinking on the inside. But that's pretty literal when it's really more just emotional. So it's intuitive and gut-like. One of them that might be in the show is this one. This one I've been working on over here. Is not done, but this has this idea of busting open, but it's also controlled, and it's a little too intellectual. The paint's not moving in a way that I am hoping to achieve, so this is still a work in progress. I love to overwork my paintings. I love the smell of paint. I love the touch of paint. I love the physicality of working big. This is a 4x4, I think 30 by 30. And see what happens. The scale goes down really quickly, and then your marks change. I am very physical. I've always been an athlete, and learning paint and mixing and painting is just an extension of that athletic experience. Looking at art and investigating art and experiencing creativity is a joyful experience. You don't understand? Do some homework, figure it out, look again, and then go away and come back and look again and see something there that makes you think. And that's what makes art so powerful.
Hi, my name is Danielle Klebes. This is my studio at Wassaic Project in Wassaic, New York, and welcome to my AVA Artist Studio Tour. Start with the most important part of my studio. This is Boots, my studio assistant. So I've got some works in progress. It's a pretty nice space. This big painting is called Back to the Garden, and it's based like compositionally on Ponce Leon in Florida, Thomas Moran's 1877 painting, which lives at the Cummer Museum in St. Augustine, I think, Florida. Right now I'm finishing up building these plants to go in front of it because I want this party scene, this wild and crazy party scene, to feel distant. Like I want to feel like a voyeur walking through the forest to get to it. So my plan is to hang that painting touching the floor so that it feels like a set backdrop or something. And then I will have these wooden plants kind of like blocking your view and blocking your path to this forest party. These are made out of cut plywood, so I'm using a jigsaw, which is a hand power tool. But I've just been making like dozens of these leaves, just like knocking them out, and there's spray paint and then oil paint on top after jigsaw sand, and then I screw them all in. So here's like a piece in progress. So it's all separate pieces for these versus the wooden figures are one single piece. Yeah. So I'm trying to make 2 more. Right now I have 2.5 finished, and I'm trying to have at least 5 for the show, so it really covers the whole front. This piece is called Midnight Adventure Club, which is what I titled my show after. And we've got some people rafting down the river in the dark. Full moon. And here's a bit of the studio. Some of the wooden people. My newest venture has been kind of combining paintings with these wooden cutouts. So this one, for example, which will not be coming to AVA Gallery. And some works in progress. Many, many leaves. So these wooden figures I started making as a continuation of a painting project I'd been doing called Aimless Pilgrimage. And that project I was like collaging photos of individual people where they were like alone in the photo into a really awkward, disconnected group. So I wanted to make a life-size, like kind of interactive crowd where you could feel really like lonely and isolated. So I started building these people, and I think I started with that just because I've like moved constantly my entire life and was very used to feeling like the outsider in a group, and I wanted to make a physical space where you're just kind of like thrown into that experience. So now I'm up to about 50 of these people. They're all pretty much life-size. They're based on drawings, so some people very like, I painted my friend Tim, who's actually 6'5" and looks like he's about 5'5" in my painting, and some other people are taller than they really are. But all of these figures are paintings of like friends, people I've done residencies with, other artists. So I bring some of these to hang out in little pods throughout the gallery. Okay, so speaking of the wooden people, I think like this painting, for example, is a continuation of that, like thematically, the idea of being an outsider in a crowd. So this one I wanted to have physical, like things blocking you from the group. So that was kind of the idea behind building these plants. But yeah, I wanted just this space, and even within this crowd, everyone's kind of like introspective and in their own head and not really present, which is important to me, to not be present. So that's about it. Thank you so much for joining me on my little studio visit, and I hope to meet you all in person at AVA Gallery. Bye.
Hi, this is Rachel Montroy in Hopkinton, New Hampshire, and this is my AVA Artist Studio Tour. I'm a mixed media sculptor with a focus on organic abstractions. I primarily work with ceramics and then fiber arts, but also with found objects. I first became interested in art when I was in high school. I absolutely fell in love with ceramics. And when I went to college, I didn't really know what I wanted to study. I took a lot of science classes, but then I switched over to art because it was my true passion. And I combined my interest of science with the arts. After I graduated from UNH with a degree in studio arts, I went to the School for American Crafts at RIT, where I received a Master's of Fine Arts in ceramic sculpture and ceramics. Since I've graduated, I've been a studio artist, and I am also a professor at a couple of colleges in New Hampshire as well as working for the League of New Hampshire Craftsmen as the Education and Community Outreach Coordinator. My show at AVA is called Within the Moss, and it is taking a close-up look at organisms that you can find within the moss, really tiny living things, and I am exploring them on a much larger scale. My process for making artwork usually just starts with taking a walk in the woods or hiking around. We do a lot of backpacking in the White Mountains in New Hampshire. And I'll bring a little sketchbook with me. I will draw things that I see. I also love photography. I have a macro lens that I use a lot to get really close up photographs of different things that I find on my walks. And I also spend a lot of time gardening. I love growing things and observing the way that they grow and move through time. It's something that's always fascinated me. So once I have some ideas from being out in the woods, then I will do a little bit more drawing, and then I will start working once I have a general idea. I do work very intuitively, though. I change my ideas quite a bit as I'm working. I've primarily worked with clay, I should say, for the past 10-15 years, but I have recently found a love for fiber arts, and I can do things in fiber arts that I can't do in ceramics, such as having long, thin, twisting elements that I can't create out of clay. So this is a wool stem piece. It has a wire in it, so I can bend it and change it around if I want to. And I just love the literally the flexibility, but also how I can be a lot more playful with my work, and I can explore things I wasn't able to explore in clay. So a new process for me very recently is knitting. I've been knitting probably since I was 10, just making some basic hats and scarves and things like that. But I started to create my own patterns for sculptures. I learned by just knitting patterns that I found of various things like different fruits and vegetables. But then I started to create my own patterns, and that's been really exciting. So here are a couple of things that I've been working on recently. So here's an abstract mushroom piece, and it's mounted on a brick, a part of a brick that I found that had been washed up in the Pemigewasset River up north. I also just love working directly with color instead of applying color afterwards. I buy all my materials pre-dyed so that I can just have fun combining different colors. This particular piece is knit, and inside is wool batting that I've needle felted, and it's a very, very tiny knit stitch with really little needles. This piece took me maybe 30 to 40 hours to make, and that's including the needle felting and stitching it together and creating the top element here. So it's called Heirloom, and it has to do with thinking about family traditions and tying together my love of gardening and heirloom vegetables, also with handing down objects in the family, particularly to young children, which this form reminds me of. Here's another new piece that I've been working on. This is made primarily by needle felting, and then these top pieces here are made with polymer clay that I've sculpted and just baked. I love polymer clay because it has this extreme flexibility, and it's the opposite of ceramics. You could drop this on the floor and it won't break. Needle felting is a really direct sculpting process. All you really need is a foam pad and your wool batting or wool roving, and then a barbed needle. And you just take your needle and stab it into the wool, and it shapes the wool and it makes it more compressed, and you can determine the different forms that you make with the way you're angling your needles. So those are the most common processes I've used to create this show here at AVA. All right, so something interesting about my work is that my work often revolves around an inner element and an outer element. Read the titles and see if you can guess the relationship between the inside part and the outside part. For example, I have this piece here. This is sculpted out of clay, and I fired the clay, and then I put wool inside of it, and I needle felted it. And this piece is a very good example of that. So I have this hard exterior that's kind of protecting what's inside of it, and then on the inside are these very soft, very kind of vulnerable places. And this piece is called Soft Spots. If you would like to learn more about my work and my processes, you can visit me on Instagram at Rachel Montroy Sculpture, and I also have a website, rachelmontroy.com. Thank you.
Okay, so we're just here with Anne Young in her studio in Barton, Vermont. And she's going to be talking about this beautiful painting up on the easel here. And there she is.
Hello. This painting is called Legacy. I wanted to do a painting on this theme for a long time before I figured out how to do it. The theme is the desperate situation that we've left our younger generations in. So I thought we've pretty much left them nothing but dust. So I asked my two grandchildren to pose for this painting, and they were happy to do it. I asked them to just hold the dust and let it drip from their hands while they gave me a pained expression. And they did. So I wanted to point out that these people represent us, the older generations, and we're going off with all our stuff, all our commercial goods, off to what we hope will be a happy planet B or something, not realizing that we've left these poor little kids with nothing.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful painting. And what's your medium, Anne?
This is oil paint. I've been oil painting now for about 20 years. And I do all my painting in oil paint. I don't care for any other medium. I concentrate on people. I just love to do people. Tried landscapes and other things, but they just don't do it for me. I have to get people into the picture.
Well, this is great. So you have a lot of portraits in here. They're really
Yes,
gorgeous.
Almost all portraits, actually.
And this painting up here on the easel?
Let me get over there. This painting was inspired by a young man I saw at the Women's March in Washington, D.C. right after the Trump inauguration. He was standing on the steps of the Mellon Art Gallery holding up a green sign that said something that I can't remember. But I picked this guy out of the crowd, and at first I had a lot of children in this picture, but they just weren't working. I took them all out. and I wanted to, it was a scene of despair. There's all these negative things in the background, the barbed wire and these vague people who don't seem to be very happy, but through his protest and action, we hope that he's going to bring, some good will come of it. And I call this picture the Triumph of Hope because of the saying that optimism is the triumph of hope over experience.
Okay, that's beautiful.
And he was just a good-looking guy, so I enjoyed doing him.
I love his hat. That's great. Look at all these portraits. And then we have another theme over here with
Well,
some doves.
I didn't feel quite finished with the Triumph of Hope theme, and so I made another one. I like to contrast the despair and the hope in one picture, and that's what I'm trying to do here.
Yeah. Well, this is very exciting. Thank you for showing me around your studio. We can't wait to see the show installed.
Neither can I.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you.